What's going on, traders? Andrew O'Connell here with Pristine Capital, coming at you with yet another market recap video. It is the beautiful day of January 10th, 2022. Well, let's take a look at the markets. We're going to take a look at the markets, my trades, all that good stuff. Before we dive in, quick risk disclaimer. Nothing in this video should be construed as investment advice or recommendations. Please follow your own trading plan, your own risk parameters. Last but certainly not least, do not YOLO your entire account to any one of my trades or anyone's trades for that matter. All right, let's dive in here, team. So yeah, nice day in the markets, and today was just great. I got up, my alarm clock went off at 4:30 in the morning, went out to the gym early in the day, got back, and really just wanted to have a good process day. That was the goal, and I think we were able to achieve that today. Let's dive into the price action first. S&P 500 down 0.12% for the session. Nasdaq up 0.07% for the session. Pretty crazy reversal we had today. IWM small caps down 0.38%. Dow Jones down 0.45%. And the ARK Innovation ETF, it actually closed up 0.26%. So very nice reversal for the Nasdaq and ARK. And look at the ranges here. This basically means that almost every index closed very close to the high of the day. And then volatility, up marginally, but earlier in the session, literally the VIX was up 20%, and it ended up closing up only 3.14%. So that, in my opinion, is a nice win. We'll take a look at the candles in the VIX, and then these, the market breadth. We had 52% advancers in the Qs, best breadth out of the whole lot, and then we had negative breadth everywhere else. In the morning, though, this breadth was horrible. So really the story for today was a big market reversal. So it's kind of funny looking at this heat map. Does it even look that good? No, not really when you just look at it in isolation. But compared to what we were seeing earlier today, this looks like heaven. You can see Microsoft ended up closing positive. So did Apple. We had Google positive, and TSLA, which I took an entry in today, up 3.03%. Sectors, check it out. Healthcare up 1.07%. K-Web is slowly but surely moving up our momentum rankings. It was up 0.89%. Social media ETF was up. Software was up 0.94%. But then you can see a lot of these other areas of the market still really got hammered. So yeah, if you were just looking at this at the end of the day, you didn't see anything in the market, you'd be like, man, today was a brutal day in the market. But compared to how we started, whoo, oh my gosh, could have been way worse. Style factors, we had the high div, low vol, up 0.07% in our top momentum slot. International values up 0.08%. Momentum actually closed up 0.35%, and then everything else was a big old loser. Defensives were down 0.82%. High beta was down 0.58%. And then seasonality, now we're approaching sort of the middle-ish of the month. And you can see that seasonality is going to turn into a headwind towards the end of the month. All right, let's check out these indices. And what are we seeing here? Let's check it out. S&P 500. Oh my gosh, look at this. So we completely cascaded today. And on Friday, it was like, my trend model closed at a -1. We never really saw any panic. I talked about that in our weekend analysis videos that were sent out to all Pristine Capital members. Hey, we haven't had that panic selling yet. And it looks like today we ended up getting some panic selling. My trend model flipped to a -3 very early in the day. And our game plan was just wait out the storm. From our pre-market webinar, it was like, all right, there could be some panic in the market today. I had 54% invested in the market, 46% cash. Was I sitting on some losers? Absolutely. But being that I wasn't overexposed, I was able to be objective, and I wasn't like stopping out of everything on the lows. I know there are players that certainly did that, because when we looked at this put to call ratio, look at this. Throughout the day, we had massive put buying in relation to calls. This put to call ratio was above a 1 almost the entire day. So we did start to see some panic puts being purchased throughout the session. But look at this. All in all, we ended up getting basically a hammer candle, and we are so darn close to this monthly point of control, if we get any sort of strength tomorrow, we could be right back above it, and then suddenly it's a whole new ball game. Keep in mind we're still stuck inside of value, but overall, compared to where we were early on in the session, I would say this certainly followed the happy path. And look at this reversal on volume. Final candle of the day came on some nice green of volume. And look at this. Now we're above this 20-hour moving average, which we really were not able to do throughout the entirety of this little down sequence. So yeah, overall, things are starting to look up. Is the trend still negative? Absolutely. So I want to make sure on exposures that I've added, I sell those into any strength tomorrow pretty quickly. Nasdaq also put in a nice green hammer candle, finishing up 0.22%. Russell 2000 also put in a hammer candle, tested below this monthly value area low and bounced back. And the Dow Jones has been showing some nice relative strength. And the Dow Jones actually closed inside value. So yeah, closed pretty much right on top of this 20-day moving average, right inside this monthly value area. I think the Dow has the worst candle out of everything. So interesting. The Dow had been showing relative strength, now a little bit of relative weakness. And I think that might be related to, drum roll please, dun dun dun, these 10-year treasuries. So, oh my gosh, earlier today, we just put in the 7th consecutive red candle for these 10-year treasury futures. And if these continue to cascade, there's almost no way that the Nasdaq or any of those growth stocks can see any green pin action. So earlier today, we tested this Venom S2 pivot again. It was like, oh my gosh, we're careening lower again in these 10-year treasuries. But they ended up bouncing throughout the session, and that was really coinciding with all of the strength that we saw intraday in the market. And these 10-year treasuries, they only closed down 0.01%. So let's say tomorrow we end up getting, a little bounce, and these 10-year treasury futures are bid. I would imagine we could get some follow through in the Nasdaq and some of those growth stocks that now at this point are very oversold. Let's take a look. That's the 10-year treasury. Boom. Let's jump over to some of my trades for today. And I made a couple moves today. So I'm long Kroger. That's my biggest position. I really like that stock for this particular market environment. I sold some March 18th 55 calls against my long common stock position. I collected a credit of 97 cents. And honestly, I would be glad to sell up there if Kroger stock got there. And I just noticed, hey, this thing is definitely overbought. It tagged the Venom R2 pivot. Do I expect it to just keep moving to the upside like this? No, definitely not. That's really like an amateur mindset when your stock just starts ripping and you think it's going to rip forever. So yeah, it's a stock. So here's the deal. It pays a dividend. And I think 2022 could end up being kind of like a weak year in the market. So something like that where I have a nice cushion, it pays a dividend. I want to hold on to it as long as possible. So I sold calls on it. And that lowered my cost basis, which is great. So yeah, if this stock goes all the way to 55 by March, I'll get taken out of it. If that does, I'd feel so happy that I even did that. So yeah, Kroger made that adjustment in the morning. And then what else did I do? I bought Infosys. Took a nice core position in this one. This one also pays a 1.65% dividend yield. And I took this when I started to see a little bit more strength intraday. And look at this chart. This is just beautiful. And it's always important. Like sometimes I've found in the past is like everyone can look at these perfect technical setups, but then when you look at what people are actually trading, they settle for the weak setups, or they don't go for the setup when it's at that perfect buy point. Infosys, this is a pretty ideal buy point here where pulled back into the 20-day moving average. We actually undercut it for 2 days, and now we got that nice pivot back above it. So I'm going to stop out if we end up below this 20-day moving average. But we're looking good. Put in a nice green hammer candle up 2.36%. And the other thing I did as we neared the close, I got long some Tesla. And this is up 1% already from my entry, which is cool. So Tesla, I always want to make sure whenever I'm buying the dip, and this is super important. I think it was Brian Shannon mention this. You know, there's like that saying like BTFD, like buy the effing dip. And this guy, he's saying it's like BTSAD or something like that. And it's like buy the strength after the dip. And that's what I try to do in Tesla here. It's like I'm not going to catch the falling knife. But now that I see that green pin action, I see bond bouncing, I see the Qs bouncing. Now that was sort of the green light, let me buy some Tesla. So yeah, since my trend model is still -1, I want to make sure if we get some follow through tomorrow that I'm selling into that strength. I don't want to get carried away and just get over the tips of my skis, but yeah, Tesla's looking good. And then other trade that I took today, this was also towards the end of the session. I got long some Nvidia 270 calls for 1950. These are also already in the money, and this was the setup that I was trading off of. I posted this for all of our members at Pristine Capital, and this is the undercut and reversal pivot. And the undercut and reversal, for anyone that doesn't know, it's when a stock has a key level that's functioning as support, right? Every time it hits that level, it's bouncing right off and we're getting a nice rally. And then that level gets taken out to the downside. Well, what happens when it gets taken out to the downside? A lot of shorts come in because they think, oh, okay, now's the breakdown, now let me short. So with the undercut reversal, what you're doing is if you cut below the support level and then you reclaim that level, a lot of times you can get a sharp move to the upside pretty quickly. So this is the pivot. I bought pretty much right at the pivot, got a really nice trade location. And what that allows me to do is I can invalidate my setup so darn easily. Like tomorrow, if we close below this red line, which we're super close to right now, I know that I was wrong on the trade. Yeah, took this one for a nice little bounce trade. So far so good. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Now let's take a look at our options flow over here on our VIGTech. Let's see, where are we at? Got our VIGTech. Where are you, VIGTech? Close this out. Nice, I can just pull it up in another window. There it is. All right, so let's go to our options races. And we already saw earlier today there was a ton of puts that went up. So let's see, Tesla's our flow leader, of course. What else do we have here? TQQQ, saw some flow for that. Tesla, give us 4 billion. No, almost 3.8 billion. Then we have some Apple, Microsoft, all the usual offenders pretty much. And then Melly, which rarely ever pops up. Let's take a look at our TradeScape. Apple, we see a mix of puts and calls. We got some very short, oh, this one's actually longer term. The January 20th of 2023 125 strike calls. January 21st 170s, and also more January 20th of 2023 looking good. Tesla, mix of puts and calls. This is really what you want to see when you get that nice capitulation. Nvidia, mixture of puts and calls, a very even playing field. See if anything else looks strange. Let's see TQQQ. Wow, let's go. All these puts went up. And it's so funny. The puts go up and then all of a sudden it just reverses to the upside. Let's check out one more. And then we'll look at Google because that one showed some nice relative strength. Google, of course, those put buyers come in and then Google ends up putting in its bottom. See, it helps. The more patient that you can be, the better off you'll be, because I must say, today in the morning it was like, oh my gosh, this is super ambiguous. What are you going to do? There's not really much to do. You're keeping your exposures low. But then as we got towards the end of the session and that rally had not reversed intraday, that to me was my signal. Okay, this could be a high edge, little window of time here to transact, and it might be short-lived. That's the thing. My trend model is still at a -1. But if we get that push tomorrow, I think that's going to be a good opportunity to sell some into strength and really just capitalize on a bounce in growth stocks. With that being said, that about does it for this market recap video. Hope you all had a great trading session today, and I'll see you all for tomorrow's video.